Hey everybody, glad you're here. This is the Chase Squirrelson Show, and I'm your host, Chase Squirrelson. And if you're listening right now, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Today's episode is one of those conversations that starts simple and then goes somewhere interesting. So let's jump in. Welcome back, everybody. And this is really, I believe, a life purpose for me right now, these episodes. I would like to know that there's at least one person out there whose life changed because they received the kind of information that I'm trying or that I am conveying on this show. And for young people, maybe still with some school ahead of them, they will understand more about how to use their unique gifts that come along with ADHD in order to navigate the education system that's not designed for us. And also for the older listeners like me who are diagnosed late, that they can make the last years of their life a lot better because they now know they have ADHD and how to navigate that. There's an overarching question for me, and while I was doing this morning, why does preparing things like this episode, me with ADHD, sometimes feel it's impossible, that feeling of impossibility. And I realize now it's not my fault that I feel that way. So I actually decided to title this episode, The Big Lie. So I'll start with a sentence that has personally betrayed me hundreds of times. And that is, tonight is the night I get organized at. And I have that in red ink when I wrote it. And I really wish that sentence alone could come with a laugh track because I've said that so many times, many of us probably have. For someone with ADHD, getting organized doesn't mean creating a system. It means buying a system, admiring it, placing it carefully on a shelf, and then setting it next to the other 7 systems that it didn't work for me. At this point, my house isn't disorganized. It's kind of like a museum of good intentions. And here's the irony. I love the idea of being organized. I really do. I would love to be. I watch videos about it. I buy planners. I must have a dozen. I briefly become a person who believes folders will save me. I put together a few rules or guidelines, and I thought I'd share those with you. The first one is the one organized to rule them all out. This is the organizer to save my life, the organizer to end all organizers. I don't need multiple organizers. I just need the right one. So if I could just find the right one. I start with a simple Amazon search looking for the best organizer for a person with ADHD. And then 2 hours later, I'm comparing a Japanese minimalist bamboo tray to something else. I don't know where that comes from. I could end up looking for a military-grade modular command center, a pastel planner designed by a 22-year-old influencer named Bree. I abandoned the search because now I'm researching why humans organize things at all. Nothing gets organized, but I do feel smarter after that. Number 2, the organizer that needs its own organizer. So I could buy a beautiful high-end system. It arrives with 47 compartments, color coding rules and tabs, a QR code linking to a 20-minute getting started video. And I think, I'll set this up when I have more mental energy. And the organizer lives unopened in a closet for 6 months or years. Then I occasionally move it out of the way to find other clutter. Number 3, then, the false hope phase. And that's about a 72-hour window. I label everything. I feel like a productivity influencer, and I briefly believe that I've fixed my brain. By day 3, one item is put in the wrong spot. The system collapses like a Jenga tower, and I decide the organizer was too rigid for me. Then there's the micro-categorization meltdown. And I really do start with good intentions. Bills, mail, important documents. And then, of course, ADHD kicks in. There's bills, current ones, bills, maybe current, bills, emotionally threatening, mail, should I open, mail I opened but didn't emotionally process, and then finally mail that ruined my day. At this point, I lie down and take a nap. Then there's always the dopamine decoy organizer. I buy an organizer because it has magnets or a satisfying click, or it folds in a very cool way. I don't care what it organizes. I just keep opening and closing it. It almost becomes a fidget toy, a conversation piece, or a symbol of unfulfilled potential. Then there's the I'll design my own system delusion, and it really is a delusion. Since there's no existing organizer that understands me, I kind of sketch a custom system. I even consider 3D printing it, and then I watch a video about Scandinavian storage philosophy, and I've done that. I briefly consider starting a company that makes ADHD-friendly organizers, and then, of course, ultimately, I never organize a single thing. Then there's the portable organizer paradox, which I call. You buy something small, so it's easy. You put it somewhere safe. Then, of course, I forget where that safe place is. Then I buy another one, and soon I'm missing both of them. The good news is they are somewhere in my house, and they are together. So I guess they're not lost. They're in the house somewhere. Then there's the emotional support pile. Since I end up rejecting organizers entirely, get frustrated with it, instead I create a pile. For me, the pile is intuitive, it's flexible, it's emotionally honest, and I say to myself, I know what's in that pile. But I have to realize I actually don't know what's in that pile. Because for me, if I can't see something, it might not even exist. Or actually, if I don't see it, it doesn't exist until maybe I see it again by accident. And then there's the organizer that triggers existential crisis. While organizing, I find old notes, half-finished projects, and abandoned ambitions, things that I want to do, like learn a new language. And then I sit on the floor holding a USB cable and whisper, who was I when I bought this? No more organizing happens that day for me. And then I go off to find something I'm interested, like a video game. Then there's the final truth, and is really is the truth for me. After all of this, the best organizer turns out to be a single open bin, no lid, no rules, located where the clutter naturally lands. And I hate how well that works. ADHD people don't fail at organizing. We just keep auditioning organizers for a role they were never meant to play. Then the dopamine wears off, and suddenly the label maker feels like an emotional obligation. If you've ever asked yourself, what is wrong with me? This episode is for you. Because today isn't about fixing your organization. It's about fixing the story you tell yourself about why it's hard. And why is it so hard for ADHD people? Organization requires three things the ADHD brain struggles with: future thinking, delayed reward, and boring repetition. In other words, organization is ADHD's natural predator. When someone says, just set up a system, the ADHD brain hears, do unpaid labor now for a reward you'll forget about later. Organization for me is a long-term relationship with a label maker. ADHD is more like a situationship with chaos. Let's talk about piles. I've mentioned those. If you have ADHD, you don't have clutter. You have zones. This pile is urgent. For me, the pile is aspirational. And that pile is decorative even. Digitally, it's even worse. I don't have email folders. I have 14,000 emails and a deep emotional belief that I'll remember which ones matter. Here's the key point. Organization doesn't feel neutral to an ADHD brain. It feels threatening because organization means deciding. Deciding means committing. And committing means possibly doing it wrong forever. So instead, I delay, which leads directly to shame. When talking about organization, if I left it up to myself to be organized, I wouldn't even be having this podcast, but I do have the benefit of a wonderful coach. I'm talking about Bronwyn Foley. Bronwyn is with us this afternoon. Bronwyn, welcome to the podcast, and you are my ADHD coach. But I wonder if people realize that there are credentials. Anybody can hang up, a placard right now or a shingle and say they're a coach. Maybe tell the listeners about what it takes to really achieve that status and having put the work in to do it.
Chase, that's so true. One of the beautiful things about coaching is that it's unregulated. One of the worst things about coaching is that it's unregulated. So, we actually do have an international governing body called the International Coach Federation. So, there is some oversight, but not regulated by a governmental body. As far as being a coach, it's true. Anyone can say they're a coach. Coaching schools are popping up all over the place, just popping out coaches. So, what you really want to look for in a qualified coach is someone who has an ICF credential. I'm a professional certified coach on my way very shortly to become a master certified coach. I have additional training that's specific in relation to ADHD impacted people. So, the coaching process is different when you work with someone who has ADHD. So I have advanced certification through a very well regarded ADHD coaching school that's linked to the ICF. In addition, what you want to look for from coaches is ongoing study and scholarship. So I have gotten certifications in positive psychology. You and I have discussed, I have certification in Colby. I have certification in merit self reg, the neuroscience of coaching. So, coaches are there to see the big picture with the client and then help the client take the big picture and narrow the focus to today and what you're going to try next to produce new results in life.
Very interesting, and I admire the work you've done. And I am a witness of how effective it is, because if it wasn't for you, this podcast never would have started. There are several questions I have. We do have limited time, but I tried to come up with questions that I thought our listeners would be very interested in. So how about the first one? What are the major misconceptions about organization for adults with ADHD?
I think the first and most critical misconception, and it's critical because it is something that ADHDers will often internalize, is that somehow disorganization or difficulty keeping track of all the stuff and all the appointments in life equates a lower intelligence. There's this belief they come into my Zoom room with, oh, I'm so stupid, or I'm such a failure, I did this or that. ADHD brains naturally distribute attention differently than a neurotypical brain. So there are challenges with regulating attention in different contexts. This isn't correlated with any kind of measurable intelligence. A lot of really highly intelligent people struggle with ADHD because they haven't been supported to understand and leverage their brain and their strengths. Instead, they've been blamed for how their brain operates without proper support. The second one I would say is the idea that ADHDers can internalize this idea that organization might be permanently out of reach. Oh, I'm just disorganized. It's sort of similar to learned helplessness, and it's a belief that develops after years of failed attempts, but with various neurotypical systems. In reality, a person with ADHD can become more organized or organized to the level that they need to be organized if they have a system that's designed for how their brain actually works instead of pursuing the outsized promise of the latest and greatest super system that is designed for someone else's brain. And then, third misconception is this idea that organization will feel easy or effortless. A lot of what gets thrown at ADHDers is that we struggle with things that are so easy. Why can't you just get it right? It's so simple. And I think a lot of that internalizes as organization should be easy, but it's actually a high effort area for ADHD people. And there might be a little extra effort involved in creating and maintaining a system that is appropriate for an ADHD brain. So the goal really is sustainable effort not zero effort. I would say that's about it for the three top that I hear.
That actually kindled an idea, or at least a reflection, on my education. When I look back, the way I look at the education system is it rewards memorizing, it rewards focusing on a lecture. And in grade school, you're pretty much told what to do, even a little bit in high school. But unfortunately, in high school, that's when you start being able to decide when to do your homework, if to do your homework. And by the time you get to college, there are no guidelines anymore. It's, if I feel like studying, I do. If I don't, I don't. And so the ADHD brain now is relying on skills that I don't necessarily have, this discipline about memorization and focus on lectures. I would imagine an ADHD test taker is at a disadvantage in the real education system because we don't learn that way. So maybe I don't score as well on a test as someone who does not have ADHD, but it doesn't mean he's smarter or more intelligent than I am. The grades just don't reflect my intelligence.
Yes,
But the fact that I couldn't get organized to realize, okay, I have to read a 300-page book by the next semester, and I, of course, don't start the book till 2 days before the test is due. So the fact that I couldn't organize myself did affect my grades.
of course, absolutely. Two things come to mind. One is, what is the lesson that is needed? So you've got a 300-page book you have to read because presumably there's something in that book that you're supposed to learn and internalize to help you be a better citizen. The other piece is, what is the lesson needed for the student? What's going to benefit you most if you leave an educational environment? Is it going to be that I read this 300-page book and now I know the thematic material that this author wanted, or that I know how to take an assignment like a 300-page book and understand how to break it down so that I can do it? So that I understand how I naturally take action towards a goal, so that when I face challenges and opportunities after school, I'm able to know how to pursue them. The other piece of the puzzle that occurred to me was, you said something about test taking. So, what is so interesting about ADHD brains, or like any brain, but ADHD brains tend to reject secondary importance. We've talked about this. It's like when the teacher says, "This is so important to me. This is so important to you now." And you're, look at that. I see you furrowing your brow. You're like, "What is that about?" and and a neurotypical student can often take advantage of that and make it important, and then just do it. Here's the thing about just memorizing random facts. Pretty much all brains, especially ADHD brains, are looking for context. What's the purpose, the meaning of these facts that I have to memorize? And if you learn to start to create context for yourself, one way or another, like it's part of coaching the process, it can make it easier to retain the data that's been identified as important for you to retain in this particular educational instance.
Yeah, I agree. If as part of a class, let's say I have to read War and Peace. Okay, why? But let's say I just received a bassinet in parts and I need to put it together. Why do I want to have 13 parts left on the floor when I'm done? No, because my baby could fall, the thing could collapse. So my incentive is look at those instructions and learn it because your baby's health depends on it. Now I'm interested.
Yeah, there's context there. There's like a larger purpose versus just handing you War and Peace and saying, read it and then answer these questions. Your brain might be curious as to exactly what the purpose is of this assignment. And you can actually create purpose. But if you
If I
don't,
don't, I'll end up saying, well, what's it about? Russia. That's about it. Let's get into a couple other questions. I know we're trying to stay on schedule. If folks with ADHD could fix just one organizing habit, which would give the biggest return to them?
of all the choices out there, I would say it's to pause and consider doing it, whatever it is, now. ADHDers often have a tendency to defer small tasks or simple supportive behaviors for a future version of themselves, which can really trip them up. It's often just this optimistic belief that you can assign something to you in the future, and you in the future will want to do it when you in the present just doesn't. And what happens is that it creates over time this unwelcome backlog, which then manifests a sense of overwhelm. So, handling small tasks and executing on those supportive behaviors prevents the cascade of overwhelm. And there are a lot of things you can do, like try the 2-minute rule or set a timer to see how long it actually takes. It can be very helpful to catch what you're thinking of in the moment and see if, you want to like put some dishes in the dishwasher and you might think, oh, this will take forever. That is all your brain needs to want to opt out, when all it truly is a few dishes that need to go in the dishwasher. So checking the thinking and those automatic beliefs can be a huge support for your brain.
Another question, and of course, I identify this with almost embarrassingly. Why do organizing systems work just for a few weeks and then evaporate? At least that's my history.
Well, let me tell you this. One of the non-clinical hallmarks of ADHD is a fascination with organization systems and a collection of unused calendars and organizational methodologies purchased over the years. So you are not alone. Remember the 5 things that get the ADHD brain into action. We've got urgency, purpose, interest, competition, and, oh yes, novelty. New planners, apps, systems, they trigger a dopamine release. So it really means like the pursuit of understanding. Dopamine is really mostly about us chasing a reward. So suddenly we're like, I'm going to chase down organization with this new system. And it's really engaging until it is not engaging anymore. And then the novelty wears off. And the system requires a new level of effort. And then the ADHD brain may resist initiating, which really just means may resist giving you the neurological resources that you want to take action on this system. It's not necessarily a failure. It's just something you can predict due to neurobiology. This perfect system for an ADHDer is likely, it's not going to be rigid. It's probably going to have redundancy, and it probably needs to be flexible in how and when you use it. And it's likely, this is the top it all off, it's likely idiosyncratic. Every ADHD brain is unique. And every ADHD system to match that brain is probably going to be a little different. And that's what we work on in coaching.
Yeah. So how simple does a system need to be before an ADHD brain will actually use it?
Well, that's a great question, because that's right. I back up into the idea that simplicity may not be where we want to start. What we want to really think about is friction or barriers to use. How many steps stand between the ADHDer and using the system? Because any system, even a system that seems simple but has high friction, will probably prove challenging to ADHD. Moderate complex system with low friction, like it's always visible, it's triggered by existing habits, like, the habit stacking rules, doesn't require a lot of decisions to get into it, is more likely to succeed.
Explain friction. What do you mean by that?
Barrier to taking action. So if there's a lot in the way of getting into what might feel like an undesirable thing, and planners, force us to pause and pay attention to future behaviors or responsibilities. Sometimes the brain doesn't really want to do that. It can kind of resist. But if we make it easy to get into it, then you're more likely to use the system or use the planner.
So what's the role of emotion and I'm speaking from my own experience, what about the role of emotion and shame, feeling overwhelmed, encountering resistance in staying organized?
Well, it's interesting. Emotion, overwhelm, and encountering resistance and shame are big parts of the ADHD experience, unfortunately, much because ADHDers live in a world that's designed for a neurotypical brain. So it's implicitly hostile to an ADHDer's brain. But they can create a vicious cycle, these feelings. The ADHD brain experiences emotions more intensely, and the ADHD brain owner may have difficulty down-regulating strong feelings. When you see a disorganized space or an overdue task, shame might hit harder, it might linger longer than it would for a neurotypical person. And what it might also do is capture the ADHDer's attention. So they're suddenly focused on the bad feeling instead of what they need to do to move forward. So, I mean, it's a lot of reasons too that you have these bad feelings, past experiences, beliefs about the meaning of organization, all sorts of stuff. Emotional intensity, like I said, absorbs attention that you could apply to problem solving. Overwhelm may make everything feel equally urgent, which of course, paradoxically, makes it hard to start. And resistance, I mean, resistance is for a lot of reasons. It might be a defense mechanism. If you don't try, you won't fail. It might be because you just don't want to do it. That could be part of you in the moment. Present you hopes future you will solve the problem. So the pass through, we can't really ever eliminate emotions. The more we avoid emotions, the bigger they grow. It's sort of an axiom of coaching, therapy, psychology. So you really
Hmm.
just want to start anywhere. Doesn't matter. Just get into action. Action eats anxiety. Action eats these feelings of inability to take action. Put one foot in front of the other and do anything that's even adjacent to the goal. Give your brain a chance to get into this new context. Notice inner narratives, and you can actively rewrite them. You can break progress into small achievable steps. You can body double with a friend, but mostly please stop telling yourself this should be easy. A lot of things are easy for ADHDers that are not easy for neurotypicals. Okay, but this is one that just isn't easy. And to be honest, our brains weren't evolved to just curate a blizzard of stuff.
That's so true. And the very fact that this podcast is happening is an evidence of this. For a year and a half, I had plans to do this, and I kept waiting for inspiration. And your suggestion was just start. And once I started, it was easy. I mean, the enthusiasm was there, but the idea, and also just because I love this doesn't mean it's easy. There's work to be done. There's preparation.
Well,
One final
yeah.
question. Go ahead. No,
I was gonna say, like, when you say I love this doesn't mean it's easy. It is very worthy to notice that there is sort of a narrative out there that if you love something, it'll just happen. But
Yeah.
actually, fulfillment and happiness in life, if you harken back to the school of positive psychology, is really based on the idea that there is something worthy of the discomfort of work, that you're still going to do it
Sure.
no matter what.
That's why they call things a labor of love, right? They love doing it. So why does a professional golfer spend 6 hours putting? I can't think of anything more boring than that. But he loves golf. He makes his living that way, so it's worth it.
Yeah.
Time is starting to creep in on us here. One more question. What's one organizing rule you wish every ADHD adult would adopt immediately?
Immediately. Okay. Notice what you're paying attention to, and then ask, how does this connect to who I want to be right now? ADHD means your attention often goes where it's pulled and not where you hope it will go. It's stimulus hungry and will run at the lowest cost, highest reward stimulus. Sometimes this is negative stimulus, like berating yourself or attending to feelings that make it seem like you can't improve. Then, after you pause and think about what you are paying attention to, ask yourself the values questions. Does this align with what matters to me right now?
Hmm.
How does organized look for me in this context? And specifically, what will help me here? Not what should I be doing because I saw a TikTok or a YouTube video that had the answer for all ADHD people. What do I need right now? Sometimes the answer is just create space to choose rather than react. Sometimes the answer is take 5 minutes, then pivot. Sometimes it's what I'm doing right now doesn't serve me at all. Then figure out what you should be doing and turn your attention to it. You're trying to build meta awareness that allows you to work with your ADHD rather than against it. It allows you to work with your brain rather than be dragged around by your brain. Organization can be a flexible tool, not a daily referendum on your worth.
I wish I could have said all that you said, but I'm not trained and educated to talk about it. But I really identify with so much that you're talking about. Bronwyn, in closing, there are listeners out there that would love to be able to talk to you. How can they reach you?
They can reach me on my website, bronwynfoley.com, and I have a contact form there. Email me, bronwyn@bronwynfoley.com as well. That's available.
Very good. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to having you again on related topics. So have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Chase. It was a pleasure as always.
Now it's time to talk about something that has influenced me so much in my life, and it's really handicapped me. And what I'm talking about is the shame spiral. For me, nothing activates shame faster than losing something you just had. I didn't lose it in a fire. I didn't lose it in a foreign country. I lost it in my own house. Immediately, my brain jumps to, what kind of adult can't find their own car keys? And neurotypical advice doesn't help me. Neurotypical advice sounds like, have you tried caring more? Or just put things back where they belong. As if ADHD brains don't want order. I do want order. I just can't maintain it without friction. And shame makes it worse. Shame doesn't motivate me. Shame paralyzes me. Shame turns a messy desk into proof that I'm broken. And let me be clear about that. If laziness were the problem, I wouldn't be exhausted all the time. This isn't a character flaw. It's a nervous system issue. To explain it, I'd like to introduce you to three characters. And they are Solomon, who's at the top of a triangle. Solomon's job is the metacognition. He's the one that decides what needs to be done in order of priority. At the bottom of the triangle is Marcus. Marcus is the one who actually gets things done, pays the taxes, the bills, sends in applications for a license, et cetera, et cetera. At the other end of the bottom of the triangle is somebody I call Ziggy. Ziggy is the guy who has ADHD on steroids, basically unbridled. So in my mind, the triangle is Ziggy, who's driven by impulse, chasing dopamine. He's curious, and chaos. Ziggy is a dopamine addict. He's full of curiosity, and he loves chaos. Ziggy does not want to organize at all. Ziggy wants to reorganize the garage at midnight because something emotional just happened. Ziggy says, what if we just start fresh every single day? Then we have Marcus, the other end of the bottom of the triangle. Marcus is disciplined. He prioritizes, executes, and uses checklists. Marcus loves spreadsheets. Marcus knows exactly what needs to be done, and Ziggy fights paying attention to Marcus. So Solomon, the metacognition at the top of the triangle, is sitting there observing all this. Solomon doesn't judge. Solomon doesn't yell. He doesn't simply watch you open 17 browser tabs. He quietly thinks, this will not end well. And here's the insight. Any hope of organization fails when Ziggy is driving the car and Marcus is locked in the trunk. Most advice says, be more like Marcus. But Marcus can't win by force. Only Solomon can choose who drives. I guess this is why most systems fail. Most organizational systems were designed by people whose dopamine systems are active and in balance. If a system requires consistency, memory, or patience, that system hates you. Drawers are a great example. Drawers look organized, but when drawers are where objects go to die, for me anyway, hooks beat drawers, bins beat boxes, and open beat hidden. The fewer steps a system has, the higher its survival rate with somebody with ADHD. If it takes more than 2 steps, Ziggy will sabotage it. You don't need pretty systems. So if your system looks weird but works, that's not failure. It's engineering. And if today all you did was notice the mess without hating yourself, Solomon would call that progress. And the final question that I must ask myself several times a day is this: which member of my triangle is driving today? If this episode hit home, don't keep it to yourself. Send it to someone who'd get it. You can follow the show so you don't miss the next conversation. And if you feel like it, a quick rating helps the show a great deal. Either way, I appreciate you being here. We'll talk soon.
This podcast is for informational purposes only. The content reflects personal experiences and opinions and is not a substitute for professional medical, psychological, mental health, or legal advice. Flint Rock LLC, the hosts, and guests make no representation or warranties and assume no liability for decisions or actions taken based on this content. Always consult a qualified professional regarding your own situation.